Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh players, and welcome to Rethinking Thunder. Today, we're going to meet the Hunders. Who are the Hunders, you ask? Well, they're a nice happy family of level 4 light Thunder-type monsters, all with 1600 or less attack. The Hunders participate in a wide variety of family-friendly activities, such as neutering Ophion with Starleash Paladynamo, running over a dragon monster with Crimson Blader so your opponent can't do jack next turn, or completely cock-blocking Mermails with Abyss Dweller. These are just a few examples of all the wholesome anti-meta bullshit that this deck can do. Let's meet them, shall we? First, we have Ma and Pa. Supposedly, they're equal in this relationship since they both have the same ability to summon their family from their hands. However, Ma clearly wears the pants in this relationship, seeing as she's 100 attack and defense higher than Pa Hunter. Pa, you really need to step it up and control your family better. When these two get together, they can get on top of each other and produce crazy things like Abyss Dweller or Diamond Dyer Wolf. Yes, Sis Hunter is going to have a hell of a time when she asks where babies come from. Speaking of which, let's meet Sis Hunter. She only has 900 attack, but she has the happy ability to resurrect her family from the dead. Bet Batman wishes he could do that. Between her and Thunder Seahorse, this deck actually has a degree of crazy amounts of card advantage. So let's talk about Thunder Seahorse. Thunder Seahorse is just like your average pet. You can play around with him, he's a comfort to see in your times of stress, and he's extremely loyal, as in he's willing to sacrifice himself in a strange ritual to summon his family from the deck. Yeah, this is pretty screwed up. Anyway, all the crazy acting and stuff aside, let's talk about the Thunder family. Now that you guys have met the standard lineup of Thunder family monsters, I'm going to talk about why Thunder family is the deck it is. That is a terrible explanation or a terrible way of saying why this deck has advantage over a lot of decks, what this deck can do, and what its weaknesses are. So first, I want to talk about some of its strengths. Like I said in my weird introduction to them, they can produce some pretty crazy amounts of card advantage. Between Thunder Seahorse, Sis Hunter, and this crazy card right here, Recycling Batteries, the deck can get basically as many monsters in your hand as you want to at any time. As long as you don't run into a game where you open with these guys early game and never draw into this guy until late game, you should be pretty much fine for card advantage. They also have the great advantage of basically being able to outspeed any deck this format. As in, they only take 2 cards and 1 monster effect in order to produce most of the cards, or most of their best strategies. Let's talk the Starleash Paladynamo. I can definitely talk Diamond Dyer, Abyss Dweller, all sorts of things like that. Even Gaga Cowboy to end games if you really want to. So they are extremely fast. They can outspeed dragons, they can outspeed spellbooks, mermails, etc. They can just put crazy moves on the board very quickly. One of their greatest advantages, though, is their ability to produce really big level 8 synchro monsters with Violon Prism. This is actually how I got through Nats for a lot of the time. Between Crimson Blader and where is he? And Thought Ruler Archfiend, Violon Prism puts in a lot of work, because Crimson Blader has the fun thing that you can do, even if your opponent opens with a Dragosack, if you hit them with a Forbidden Chalice after you summon your Crimson Blader, that Dragosack's effect is negated, which means it can be destroyed this turn, and your Crimson Blader still has almost 1,000 attack points more than that Dragosack, and can run over and stop your opponent from doing things. So Violon Prism puts in a ton of work. I tend to run 2 and side the third one, but some people play 3 just because being able to go into these 2 cards is simply amazing. Thought Ruler Archfiend, just to give you guys a sense of perspective, is basically unstoppable against when your opponent is playing Evil Swarms, because really their only out to it is, I suppose now they have Mirror Force, which is why you have Lance, and I guess Bahamut. But that's really 3 cards available to them out of the entire deck that can stop this behemoth, and he can just keep adding on life points. He has that nice little ability to replenish the cost for his own effect. So crazy stuff you can do with that Violon Prism. You also have the ability to abuse a ton of side deck cards. This deck doesn't hurt or isn't hurt by Goes and Match, since most of its best Xyz monsters, these Starliege Paladynamo and Constellar Omega, are light monsters. And you can also go into Violon Epsilon, which is a level 8 synchro that's basically Scrap Dragon, except it's a light monster, and its ability is to send one Violon monster or one Violon card you control to the graveyard to destroy one card on the field. I don't actually possess one, but with Goes and Match on the board, you can do that, which is extremely good against Dragon Rulers. And speaking of Dragon Rulers, this deck can also run Imperial Iron Wall on its own. Yes, Sis Hunder does get in the way of that, but you can side her out for the Iron Walls, and you can do a ton of good things, since this deck doesn't really rely on banishing anything. It can also run the Graveyard Stoppers, Defissure, Macro, and Soul Drain. Since the only card that has anything to do with the graveyard is Recycling Batteries, and I suppose Violon Prism, you can use all of these cards without really being hurt at all. You can also, since you have Recycling Batteries, abuse the hell out of Electric Virus. 2 Electric Viruses in the side deck, if you've got the double Recycling Batteries in your deck, can basically allow you to take control of the game against dragons, or even against evil swarms. Since you can use that Electric Virus, you can grab onto their Ophion or their Dragasac, and you can attack them directly with it for a ton of damage. You can use the Dragasac to pop your opponent's card. There are just tons of fun things you can do with Electric Virus, not to mention the fact that you can get it back with Recycling Batteries. So crazy shenanigans you can do there. And this deck does also support Thunder King Ryo, since you do have the ability to go Maw and then Paw and then activate Paw's effect and summon Thunder King, which can put an Xyz monster and Thunder King on the board, which is a pretty great combination. So all in all, this deck has a lot of possibilities. Not to mention the fact that it has anti-meta plans for basically every deck of the format. So the only issue this deck tends to run into, besides running out of resources, which can be solved with some cards that I will be covering in other videos, is Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is a pretty massive issue for this deck, since people aren't running, it's the what's it called? Dang, I cannot talk today. Light Imprisoning Mirrors right now. Effect Veiler is really your only issue, so you need to have things that can get around Effect Veiler. One of my favorite cards for doing that is, I have it in here in the deck someplace, give me a moment, Threatening Roar. If your opponent hits the Effect Veiler button, you can stop them from taking out your monsters for a turn with Threatening Roar. Since they use the Effect Veiler, you aren't actually going at minus with that Threatening Roar. You can keep your monsters on the board unless they really want to take that away from you with a card effect, and then go for their abilities during the next turn. So, Effect Veiler, yes, is a problem. It can be solved with Macro and Defissure. You can also side Soul Drain or Mind Drain if that's really a problem for you. There's also Debunk, which is a great card for this format since it can also stop dragons. There are just all sorts of fun things that you can do with this deck, even to get around the biggest problems that it has. If it has any reason why it flounders against the meta, it's because of a lack of firepower. If you don't have a Violon Prism in your hand, really your best option is Paladynamo, because it can get over opponents' monsters by reducing them to 0, but it doesn't hold up a lot of field presence. He has the nice advantage of when your opponent does finally destroy him, giving you another resource, but in all reality, this card isn't going to hold up the kind of presence that, say, a level 8 Synchro would. I already have a Crimson Blader on the board. So, that is my introduction to the Thunder family. It's an extremely control-based deck. It's got a lot of strategies that are my type, where you can make up creative plays and make things up on the fly. It's extremely fun, it's very competitive, and I will be showing you guys the way that I am building it later on, as well as talking about some of the engines and ways that you can recover resources with the deck. Next time on Meet the Thunder Monsters, I suppose, Rethinking Thunder, I will be talking to you guys about Watts, which actually have a really interesting synergy with the Thunder family deck. So stick around for that. Meanwhile, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why. And then subscribe for more Thunder decks, or yes, more Thunder decks and other Thunder videos and other kinds of Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! and Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See you guys.